Hey, this is Kevin from Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. If you want more information like you're about ready to see, go ahead and hit like and subscribe to support this independent podcast. CJ Stroud, I love the pick to the Houston Texans. I thought he was the best quarterback in this class as far as natural throwing ability and mechanics. Obviously, kind of had that negative smoke screen that could have possibly cost him the first overall pick, but overall, I like the home in Houston. He's going to be their day one starter. I don't think Davis Mills poses any sort of threat to that. That being said, I think he's going to, he's probably going to be QB 25 this year. Like he's going to have some bumps and bruises and learning curves. So serviceable possibly in a 2-quarterback league, definitely an emergency style quarterback if you get real down and dirty. For dynasty purposes, anywhere in the top 3, right? I think your Bijan, I think Richardson, and I think CJ Stroud are kind of my top 3 in that order as far as dynasty rankings go. And we'll see how he performs in Houston. Stetson Bennett going in the 4th round to the LA Rams. I touched on him a little bit earlier here in the show. I like this landing spot for him. I like the fact that he can go in, he can learn for 2 years in a McVay offense behind a fellow Georgia alum, and that does mean something. There's an instant connection between those 2 quarterbacks that it will make it easier for Matt Stafford and Stetson Bennett to bond. They already know each other because Stafford goes back to Athens so much, but now they get to work together. I think that'll be a big benefit as Stetson Bennett tries to prove doubters wrong yet again, and maybe one day find himself the starting quarterback of an NFL franchise. Jahmyr Gibbs, one of the big surprises in the draft with how early he went. But I like this spot in Detroit. So you have David Montgomery kind of being your thumper, filling that Jamal Williams type role for the team. Jahmyr Gibbs is DeAndre Swift, but younger and more dynamic at this point. So lots of catches. I really like him in a PPR league. He will have fantasy relevance right away, which is always a good thing. So I think he's going to be one of those guys that you could probably pick up in the 4th, maybe 5th round. We'll see as we get closer into draft season. But I like Gibbs, and I like his setting there in Detroit. Kendre Miller, who went to New Orleans. This one's interesting, guys. This one is, he could have some really, really big upside if Alvin Kamara and these legal troubles don't go away, or if Alvin Kamara is suspended, right? I mean, so right now, as the roster sits, he's 3rd on the depth chart, right? It's AK, Jamal Williams, and then Miller. But if AK misses time, Miller comes to be that second back in a 2-back system there in New Orleans and does provide fantasy value and good roster depth come draft day. Tajay Spears going to Tennessee. I like this one. I like this one quite a bit as I think Tennessee's going to manage Henry's workload more this season than what we've seen going forward. Spears showed that he could carry the rock, that he could work on all 3 downs to some point in college. His biggest learning curve, much like all rookie running backs, is going to be pass protection. Like, is he going to be able to help out on 3rd down, or is it going to be a dead giveaway that if he's in on 3rd down, they're throwing the ball and he's just going to scamper out of the backfield? Dwayne McBride going to the Minnesota Vikings. This, much like Miller, is intriguing because there are rumors that Dalvin Cook could be cut by the Minnesota Vikings. And if he is, I do think that you see Dwayne McBride kind of step up and quite possibly be that number 2 running back behind Alexander Mattison. So another guy who's worth a flyer late in rookie drafts or even late in redraft leagues if you have deep benches, to be able to kind of suck him up and get a piece of what should be a pretty high-powered offense yet again this season. Quentin Johnston going to the Chargers. I like this. I don't know that I love it for this year, right? And a lot of it's health dependent. Can Keenan Allen stay healthy? Can Mike Williams stay healthy? What does this offense look like with Kellen Moore? Is Austin Eckler going to be part of this team still. There are a lot of questions around the Chargers, but Quentin Johnston, I think, is a guy that come next year we are going to like a lot more as some of this dust settles than I do his rookie season. He is a guy that I think I'm going to just stay away from as far as redraft leagues go for this year. Jonathan Mingo going to Carolina to play with Bryce Young. I like this. He can play inside, play a little bit outside. They're still kind of revamping the passing game for this Carolina offense. Young quarterback, which is going to limit Mingo's success here in year one. But nonetheless, he's worth the stash in Dynasty redraft leagues. Yet again, I do think I'm going to kind of fade away because this Carolina offense and their passing attack, I do not think is worth taking up valuable roster space here for this season. Jalen Hyatt going to the New York Giants. I don't think this was the best landing spot for Jalen Hyatt. I think that he is in a situation where he is a little bit more electric than everybody else who's on the roster as far as deep throws go, but I don't know that they're going to have him do a whole lot besides be that deep threat. Almost like a Gabe Davis 2.0. So a lot of deep threats. I do think that there's a possibility he could lead the league in air yards per target. So if best ball might be a good format for Jalen Hyatt. Maybe a late season as he kind of gets his feet underneath him for redraft leagues and in dynasty leagues. He's a second-round dynasty pick, and I think you just kind of see how he develops as the Giants continue to grow here with Daniel Jones' newfound success. And then last but not least, Dalton Kincaid. This was a tough one for me because when the draft pick first came in from Buffalo, I didn't like it that much. I know some folks did. I didn't because of, seeing how they used Dawson Knox. As I sit back on this, I like this pick a little bit more because Dalton Kincaid doesn't block. He's a more dynamic and electric Julius Thomas is kind of how I see Dalton Kincaid. Has better hands than Julius did because Julius had a case of the drops. But I do think Kincaid's going to be used more in different sets. They'll move him along those lines. I don't think that they're going to ask him to block a whole lot. I think they're going to work on that with him off to the side and during practice. But when it comes to game time, I think he's out there to be a weapon, and he's out there to take some pressure off of Stephon Diggs, maybe free up Gabe Davis a little bit more and keep those safeties honest as Dalton Kincaid goes up the seam or sits in that zone between the backers and the safeties and allow those wide receivers on the outside to try and get behind the defense and make some hay here for Buffalo.